Let's take a look now at the latest in the Bradley Manning case. Today is day 2 of 3 of a 3-day pre-trial hearing for Private First Class Bradley Manning. His defense team is working to get several counts, specifically 10 out of the 22 against him, dropped. They've also asked the government to turn over damage assessment reports that resulted from the 2010 leaks that were posted on the whistleblowing website Wikileaks. Today, 2 officials with the State Department testified and talked about their role in efforts to control damage after those secret documents were leaked. I want to talk about the latest and also some of the bigger implications of this. Here to discuss is Kevin Zeese. He serves on the steering committee of the Bradley Manning Support Network and is also the organizer of Occupy Washington, D.C. and co-director of It's Our Economy. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Good to see you.
I think it's important to sort of break down what's going on now. And I want to start with a question a whole lot of people have been asking. If nothing Bradley Manning leaked did any damage to the U.S., why are these documents that are being held called classified?
That's exactly the root of the issue, because that's when documents should be classified, is that they are going to have an adverse effect on national security if the public or other countries learn about them. And so that's why the Manning defense team has been fighting so hard to try to get access to those documents. So far we've heard nothing that indicates that any damage was done by these documents. In fact, we both heard former Defense Secretary Gates, Secretary Clinton, both minimizing the effect of the release of these documents. And it really raises the question, should these documents have been classified? Should Manning be prosecuted at all? I think what really comes down to is what this T-shirt says, truth. Truth is the first casualty of war. We had 24 people in court today wearing these shirts to try to get that message across. We had making it clear that people are following this case closely, want to see the truth come out. That's what this case is about. Should the American public know what our government is doing in our name, both in the military and the State Department, their work with corporations, and their work with allies who are mostly part of the U.S. empire?
And we spoke about this yesterday with Kevin Gosztola on our show. And he said that the judge yesterday asked the government to actually go through item by item and sort of say, explain each item and say if there was evidence for it. It seems like a little too late. Not too late, but a little late. However, I think it's a good thing that it's happening. What do you think is going to come down out of this?
Well, I think it is late. I mean, the trial is scheduled to start in September. We're talking about tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pages of documents. And so I'll be surprised to see this trial go off in September. But the government's been dragging their feet. I think yesterday, Bradley Manning's lawyer, David Coombs, did a great job of making the case. The government's been dragging their feet on this. They've been fighting for discovery like this since the beginning. This is routine discovery. It's called Brady material. Brady versus the United States requires the government in both military and civilian trials to give evidence that's relevant to the defense, that's material to the defense. And these should be expected to be given. Bradley Manning's lawyer, by accident, got a document because the military found they had not even begun to search their files for Brady material 9 months after Coombs started asking for it. And that happened to get to him in a circuitous way, but he got that document and just like floored him. That here we are in court, they are in court fighting for these documents. The government's making the claim that there's so much, it's so voluminous, it's so hard to get it all, and it turns out they haven't started even looking for it yet.
Why do you think that is? I mean, do you think that the government just, the prosecutors in this case just thought that they were going to be so backed by the government that they were just going to sort of slide through and not have to present anything?
Well, I think this case it looks like a kangaroo court. I must say the judge is really listening carefully to David Coombs. She's starting to really question the veracity and credibility of the prosecutors because they give multiple answers to the same question, depending how that question is asked. She's learning that you have to ask the question exactly the right way, or you're not going to get the full answer from the government lawyers. And so I think it looks like a kangaroo court, except the judge is starting to wake up. And I think it looks like a kangaroo court because you have the commander-in-chief, President Obama, saying he's guilty on tape. You have the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying at a press conference that was published in Stars and Stripes, the semi-official publication in the military.
Not to mention a suspect held in solitary confinement for so long.
I was just going to mention that too. Yeah. So you have the undue command influence, and you have the solitary confinement for almost a year before he's even formally charged.
Right.
And then you have the dragging their heels in discovery, not even following what is basic rules of discovery and providing of evidence. So it looks like a kangaroo court, and I think the prosecutors are assuming that this is going to be a slam dunk. And we we hope that by being there and being present and showing that the public's concerned and that the great lawyering by David Coombs, that we can actually get a fair trial of this. And if it happens, this case should be dismissed for outrageous government conduct. As you mentioned, the solitary, the undue command and influence, and the discovery lapses, that's outrageous government conduct. You can't get a fair trial in those circumstances.
Kevin, we just did a segment called Glimmer of Hope. What are your glimmers of hope in terms of this Bradley Manning case? I mean, there's certainly on the other side so many things that are really hard to swallow when it comes to this case, when it comes to the treatment of the suspect in this case. Is there anything that gives you hope that it may be dismissed, or that it may be some of those charges might at least be dropped?
I think David Coombs made some great arguments today, and some of his co-counsel as well, arguing for dropping some of the charges. The judge was very attentive, so I'm hopeful that some of these charges will be dropped or winnowed down a bit. And I do think the judge is getting sensitive to what this case is about, the fact that we started off with that there maybe have been no national security damage at all, and that they're trying to make an example of this young guy. I mean, now Manning's 24 years old. He's been 2 years in jail. You know, almost 10% of his life has been spent in jail on a case that hasn't even gone to trial yet. And so my hope is that by the public coming out, the public showing their concern, the great lawyering from Coombs and his team, that we'll get some justice in this case, and that we'll see this case handled with the dismissal it deserves.
I want to talk about the state secrets aspect of this case, because this is time and time again. And I'm not sure to what extent the prosecutors get to determine what state secrets are, but you know, this whole classified aspect, this whole seeming desire to not have this case be public. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, there's been a real effort to prevent the press and thereby prevent the people, the public, from knowing what's going on in this case. It's very hard to go to these trials and understand what's happening because we don't get to really see all the filings. A lot of stuff is provided to the court, where the court only sees it, and then she has to decide what's made public. And when you saw, we could see yesterday that some of the documents, the few documents that the government has given to David Coombs and Bradley Manning, the pages are just blacked out and blacked out and blacked out. The government says they gave 12,000 pages, and you look at the pages, they're all, you know, all black, and you can't see anything on them. So there's a real effort, I think, to keep the truth out, and that's what this case is about. Bradley Manning is being essentially prosecuted for getting the truth out. The truth out about what our foreign policy is about, how the U.S. military behaves on a daily basis, and how our State Department behaves on a daily basis. Really what should be prosecuted are some of the people who were exposed in these documents. Those ones should be prosecuted. Bradley Manning is a whistleblower who has just gotten the truth out in a time of war, and that's a very risky thing to do.
Yeah, and you know, the other side says it's risky because he put our lives in danger. He gave secrets to the other side, and I think you're right.
But of course, we've seen no evidence that actually putting lives in danger, that it actually undermined U.S. Foreign policy, that it risked our national security. What it did was embarrass us by showing the good. There is some good in our foreign policy, the bad, the ugly, and the illegal in our foreign policy, and that really is the embarrassment. It's about embarrassment. It's not about undermining U.S. security.
I think you hit the nail on the head, too, when you said, I mean, it seems in so many ways they're really trying to make an example out of him, make sure this never happens again. I appreciate you coming on the show, Kevin Zeese with the Bradley Manning Support Network. Keep us posted, please.
We will. Thank you.